This truly is. They're still coming in. It's amazing what a venue and free breakfast. I mean, I hear people on the street saying, "What's going on? What's going on?" I don't know. Somebody's speaking, but it's free and it's all you can eat. Oh, okay. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have such a overflowing crowd here for our governor. I want to begin by thanking the sponsor of today's program, Amazon. In particular, we are truly grateful to Jerome Smith, Dorchester, the company's head of community affairs here in New England, who serves on the board of directors of the New England Council. And we are honored to have his presence, his vision, his wisdom, his counsel. As well as Christina Fisher from Northeast Public Policy Manager for Amazon, who will introduce the governor in just a few moments. Before I hand it over to Christina, I want to take a moment to tell you about some of our upcoming New England Council programs, because we truly have a very busy spring coming up. Next week, we'll be hosting another New England governor, New Hampshire's Governor Chris Sununu, at a breakfast in Manchester. We also have events in May with both the Granite State Senators, Jeanne Shaheen on the 22nd in Washington, D.C., and Senator Maggie Hassan on the 31st in Manchester. And of course, we're just 2 weeks away from our 2024 Washington Leaders Conference. We have over 250 New Englanders from all 6 New England states registered to join us for 2 days of networking and briefings and meetings and opportunities to meet with all policymakers, whether they be in Congress, in the administration. And we have room, believe it or not, for a few more if you haven't already signed up. As always, you can find more information and register for any of our events on our website, newenglandcouncil.com. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and now I'm pleased to hand it over to Christina Fisher of Amazon.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you this morning. I'm honored to introduce Governor Healey. Most of you in this room probably already know Amazon, and maybe some of you, when you think of us, you still think of us as that small bookstore based out of Seattle, Washington. But I'm here to tell you some things you may not know about Amazon. Amazon is deeply committed to New England. We are proud to employ over 4,500 employees at our Boston Tech Hub, 18,000 employees across Massachusetts, and over 35,000 employees in New England. And those employees are important to us. And that's why we partner with institutions like UMass Boston, Quinsigamond Community College, CCRI, and UConn through our Career Choice program. Amazon now funds prepaid college tuition, as well as high school, GED, and English as a second language certification proficiency certifications for all of our frontline employees, including those who have been with Amazon as little as 3 months. We want our employees to grow, even if that means growing and moving on from Amazon. Another thing you may not know about Amazon is that Massachusetts is home to Amazon Robotics. The research, design, and manufacturing for our robotics that we use worldwide happens right here in Massachusetts. Earlier this month, we were honored to have Governor Healey, Secretary Howe, and Secretary Jones join us for the grand opening of our first robotics fulfillment center in North Andover, Massachusetts. She and her team were able to see how our state-of-the-art facility partners with more than 1,500 employees with thousands of robotics to safely and efficiently deliver packages across the Northeast. Designing, manufacturing, deploying robotics across our operations networks creates new roles at Amazon and opportunities for our employees to learn new skills and advance their careers. Amazon also cares about climate change. We are proud to be a leader in the commercial electric vehicle deployment space. Amazon partnered with Rivian to design our state-of-the-art delivery vans, which you can now see delivering packages to your doorstep across the Commonwealth. In Massachusetts, we have over 300 vans already on the road. In Connecticut, 75 vans are already on the road, with more to come. And while Amazon has a unique story to tell right here in New England, we still face the same issues that many of you in this room face, whether that's transportation, housing, or workforce issues. And these issues don't stop at Massachusetts' border. New England is a unique region with shared values, common goals, and it's important to have an organization like the New England Council to bring us together. We are grateful for their partnership in bringing us all together this morning. But back to the reason why we are here today. Governor Healey also shares these concerns. She is a true New Englander, growing up in New Hampshire and now leading the Commonwealth as we tackle these issues. Her focus and collaboration on economic development, innovation, and climate change will push us in the region forward and ensure that Massachusetts remains a place where families want to stay and businesses want to grow. It is my honor and my privilege to introduce Governor Maura Healey.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much, Christina, for that introduction. And thank you for hosting us just a couple of weeks ago up at Amazon's new distribution center in North Andover. We were there, many of us on the team, Secretary Howe and others. It was really terrific and a terrific example of exactly the kind of spaces that I want us leaning into. These are great jobs, great careers. The parts for these components, I mean, we're an robotics hub. I am going to speak, and I don't mean to go off script. This team's getting nervous, but the stuff, you know, there's 1,500 robots there doing all sorts of cool things, and all the component parts, they're made in Westboro, in North Reading, right, and then deployed in North Andover. And you have kids and students from area colleges and universities who are trained up to then be working in these facilities. So to me, it was just a great example of Massachusetts and what has always been our history of iterating, evolving from the earliest days on to the present. And that's just an example of the kind of exciting things that are going on and a reason why I feel so blessed to have this opportunity to work and serve alongside our team and the administration and all of you. So I want to thank you for welcoming me here this morning. It's great to be in this room. It's great to be with Jim. Thank you. Jim agreed once again to serve as chair of the Governor's Council on Disabilities, so I appreciate that as well. And congratulations as you approach, not you, Jim, but the council, 100 years. You look good. You look really good. I need your secret. You know, I really look forward to the opportunity to come before you every year. So many familiar faces, so many wonderful partners in the room. And this council is something special. As Christina mentioned, you know, I'm a kid whose ancestors first landed on the Parker River in Newbury, Massachusetts in 1636. The Irish ones came along later and ended up in Boston and then back on the North Shore. But I was raised a kid in New Hampshire, right on the seacoast. So, you know, New England is so much in my roots. In fact, my grandmother was so upset that I was going to be born at Bethesda Naval Hospital, where my dad was stationed, that she actually dug up dirt from our family woodlot in Newbury, Massachusetts. She was a nurse. She put on her nursing outfit, got on a plane, went down to Bethesda, and snuck into the delivery room, put the dirt underneath my mom in the delivery bed, and I was so that I could be born over New England soil. That is a true story. Also not in my remarks this morning, but I was thinking of that. So anyhow, I will begin. Delighted to be here today, as I say, with members of our team, Secretary of Economic Development, Yvonne Howe, our Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Rebecca Tepper, our Secretary of Administration and Finance, Matt Gorkowitz, our Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development, Lauren Jones, our Secretary of Veteran Services, John Santiago, our Climate Chief, Melissa Hoffer. I also see many undersecretaries represented in the room and other members of the administration, a couple of whom I'll introduce later. But it's just to say we very much operate as a team. The LG and I, she sends her regards. She just had a service for her dad yesterday, as some of you may know. But she's doing a fantastic job and working her tail off. And, we are very much a team. So we benefit from being in rooms together with all of you. And I want to thank my colleagues for the great work they do day in and day out. This Massachusetts, our economy, it continues to drive innovation, attract investment, and produce good jobs. I am going to talk about some of the challenges that we are confronting and how we are meeting them. But I want everyone in this room to know that I am optimistic about our state. I am ever optimistic about our state, particularly in this moment where we are in the country, where we are in the world. Some of the indicators we know are good. We've got a really low unemployment rate now, lower than anywhere just about in the country. More people are working in Massachusetts than any other time in our state's history. We lead the nation in venture capital funding, both per capita and according to per unit of GDP, so that's a big deal. We're the state where ideas and innovations enter the economy and shape the future. Now, a year ago, I stood before you and said that I was going to do everything I could to maximize federal funding in our state. We've got more money in our stabilization fund than ever before, excellent bond rating, got an upgrade last spring, in fact. But we also benefit this year from sizable federal funding. The way that came together is because I appointed a team in the office and said, your mission is to go out and chase every single dollar. And I'm really pleased that working together in just 1 year alone, our team was able to bring back over $3 billion to Massachusetts. Infrastructure, transportation, resilience, and so much more. But we get those federal dollars, we leverage them with state dollars, we leverage them with private investment, right? And then we're really cooking. We also made a play for unique opportunities that the Biden administration has made possible. We not only won the funding that I spoke about, but we've also been awarded key national hubs. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. What am I talking about? President Biden, big moonshot for medical innovation, ARPA-H. Massachusetts won that, and we are now the Investor Catalyst Hub for ARPA-H. The Northeast Microelectronics Coalition Hub, this is a different hub. Advanced manufacturing, working with other New England states. Massachusetts, we won that this year. The Ocean Tech Hub, this is for marine science, and we work together with Rhode Island to land the Ocean Tech Hub to drive a blue economy. And most recently, UMass Amherst was chosen to lead the Academic Center for Reliability and Resilience of Offshore Wind, the nation's big play for offshore wind. That's Massachusetts, 4 big hubs, could have gone anywhere in the country. They came to our state. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Massachusetts continuing to lead the way. Just last week, we were awarded nearly $160 million in the Solar for All program. It was the second highest award of any state in the country. Among other things, it's going to bring solar power to over 31,000 low-income homes in predominantly low-income communities. As I say, it builds on the $3 billion in federal funding that we've delivered in the past year, which includes funding for Cape Cod bridges and the Alston multimodal project. So we've got momentum, and we want to make really, really good use of it. I said at the outset a year ago that our goal was to make Massachusetts more competitive, more affordable, and more equitable. That is what we are trying to drive every single day. We started with cutting taxes, and you can remind Governor Sununu that I'm proud to be the first governor in over 20 years to cut taxes, $1 million tax cut that saves everyone money. After working hard to deliver on that, I can assure you that we have no plans to propose new taxes or raise existing ones. Instead, we're focused on managing our spending carefully. It's what we have to do. We're proposing as well strategic, smart capital investments that protect and leverage our excellent credit rating to address fundamental needs. Let me just talk about a few of those. Housing, it's a subject of a lot of discussion. High costs, we know, are a significant barrier. They're a reason why people can't afford to stay here, a reason why people can't afford to move here. When I talk to companies, maybe the single greatest challenge their teams face in landing and recruiting and retaining talent is the high cost of housing. I don't know how many young people living at home, maybe you've returned from college, can't forget about a down payment, can't afford rent right now. How many older folks can't afford to downsize right now in our state? This is a problem. It is the number one issue hindering our economic competitiveness. And as your governor, I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to take that off the table. But we know we're digging out of a hole. It's estimated that we're down 200,000 housing units lacking in the state. So we need more housing, and we need more housing that people can actually afford, and that is why I filed the $4 billion housing bond bill. It's a big number, but it is really, really important. The Affordable Homes Act would build homes at every income level, and jumpstart private housing production. It will reduce costs, create more homeowners, and improve quality of life. And that's why we've got the support of so many local officials, employers, labor, healthcare leaders, and health and housing experts. And as we continue working with the legislature, you're going to see us out there in communities talking about the tremendous and necessary benefits that new homes will bring. Speaking of investments in our future, the Mass Leads Act is our economic development legislation. It's a bill that leans into our strengths and seizes new opportunities across every sector of our economy, and importantly, across every region of the state. The Mass Leads Act goes big. It goes big on tourism and the creative economy, just in time to capitalize on our leading role celebrating America's 250th birthday, and it's poignant today to be here on the harbor, actually. If you're not looking at me, you can look out and at least reflect on the courage of a couple hundred years ago in the dumping of the tea. And in all seriousness, it does. It goes big on the tourism and the creative economy. Thank you. Some of you are wearing the Mass 250 sticker. We appreciate that. Looking forward to a great couple years of celebrations. It also goes big on life sciences. We are the global hub for life sciences. We want to remain the global hub for life sciences, and we want to lengthen our lead in life sciences. So it's a reauthorization, another 10-year commitment to that. And I also want to thank Kendall, Berlin, O'Connell, and MassBio for their continued partnership on ARPA-H and on so much. We're also going big on advanced manufacturing and robotics with companies like Amazon and accelerators like Mass Robotics. We have a lead, and we are committed to growing it. It also goes big on artificial intelligence, and specifically applied AI. There are other states and places that have developed AI. Of course, the truth is a lot of those developers came out of Massachusetts and then went west. As governor, I want to make sure that going forward, we hold on to those people, right? But they went out, they developed AI. Okay, that's great. The key is who's going to unlock the potential of applying AI to cure diseases, to solve major challenges, to identify how and where we're going to build the resilience for climate mitigation and decarbonization, right? These are real challenges, and AI is going to help us unlock solutions. And I want Massachusetts, because we should, to lead on this. And that's why I've proposed $100 million to make Massachusetts the applied AI hub for the country. We can create a unique lane for our state in developing technologies that will bring AI to every industry. We're already preparing for this action. Some of you, thank you for accepting the challenge. You are appointees to my AI task force and already have been convening and discussing ways we're going to do this. We've brought together more than 200 leaders from industry, labor, higher ed, and government, among others, working across 9 different sectors, looking specifically at how we can apply AI. Real, actionable recommendations are what I've asked for, and they've already started to emerge just a couple months in. I continue to be impressed by the incredible talent that we have in this state. talent like no other across the country. Just a couple weeks ago, 2,000 people and 80 startups attended an AI summit in Cambridge that was convened by John Werner. And we had people from 15 different countries, 35 different states. We're ready to lead in this space. And that's what I intend to do, working with all of you in our teams. Finally, the last piece, an important piece of this economic development bill, is climate technology. You know, years ago, we made a play for life sciences, and we said we were going to own and dominate that space. Right now, we are on the precipice of owning and dominating climate technology. Somebody, somewhere in the world has got to do it. And no one is positioned quite like Massachusetts to make that happen. So let's talk about climate tech. I know it's a relatively new term to some, but I want you to understand this is an incredible opportunity for our state. And frankly, it's an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. When we talk about climate technology, we're talking about all the technology that's going to help us reduce carbon emissions, mitigate the impacts of climate change, and build resiliency. It covers a whole bunch of stuff, from clean energy to the kind of building materials we use, to how we do agriculture, to how we protect against floods and the like. And I just wanted to share a few of the companies. There's so much cool stuff happening in our state that reflects this industry, this possibility. So, how many of you knew that the very first place in North America, long before it became the United States of America, where steel was made, how many of you know where that is? It's not Pittsburgh. No, it's Saugus, Massachusetts. Okay, 1640, we made steel here in Massachusetts. Today, through the work of a company called Boston Metal in Woburn, we're making green steel. And we know that steel is a $1.6 trillion industry. It generates approximately 8% of global emissions. So when you talk about decarbonizing, whoever unlocks the way to decarbonize steel, such a major component, is going to win. And the company that's doing that, that's researched and developed that, and is looking to grow, is right here in Woburn, Massachusetts. In Westboro, we were out a couple weeks ago, Ascend Elements, which is a company focused on decarbonizing electric vehicle battery production. They started a group of students, Worcester Polytech, WPI, great school in Worcester. They received funding from state agencies or state-affiliated agencies. This is why this stuff matters. We just did a budget. We'll be working on another one. But these are taxpayer dollars at play. Here's what happens with them. Money goes to Mass Ventures. Money goes to the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. It then goes out to these people who are developing and researching this new technology. And they end up setting up what becomes Ascend Elements. Last year, Ascend Elements had one of the biggest private funding rounds of any climate tech company, not just in Massachusetts, but in the entire country. See, that's what I'm talking about, and the ability to leverage those public dollars with the innovation and our academic institutions, our research, right? And the private funding that's out there. I'll mention another one. I talked about green steel. There's also green cement. The company that's figured out a way to do this, Sublime Systems, right here in Massachusetts. And you know what's cool about that? They started in Somerville, and now they're bringing 70 manufacturing jobs to Holyoke. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about something that we can deploy and make use of statewide. Last week, we helped Electric Hydrogen cut the ribbon on a new factory in Devens. They're one of the world's leading producers of material needed to make green hydrogen fuel. This is fuel that could power heavy industries that account for up to 20% of the world's carbon emissions. It's a big deal. Nuvera Fuel Cells has its U.S. headquarters in Billerica. Their technology uses green hydrogen to power buses, trucks, port equipment, and marine vessels. Electric hydrogen and Nuvera are just two of the Massachusetts companies that won grants totaling $95 million last month to develop clean energy innovations. And so many more are making an impact. Now, for those of you who follow lists, Time Magazine recently published a list of America's top green tech companies. More than 25 of those companies are Massachusetts companies. That's great. So that's why I am focused on this, all right? I continue to be blown away by the potential and by the progress in this state to solve some of the greatest challenges of our time. And there's a thread that connects all these companies that I just talked about. It starts so oftentimes with our academic and research institutions at world-class universities. It leads through startup incubators like Greentown Labs in Somerville, the nation's biggest in climate tech. Many of them launch with help from Mass CEC, for example, whose budget this year we more than doubled. They secured capital in Massachusetts. They attract federal support to advance national policy goals as well as commercial applications. And they scale up with the lab to fab model that brings good manufacturing jobs across our state. This is the ecosystem that the Mass Leads Act invests in. We've done it in life sciences. We've seen where that's taken us. We have all the same ingredients to do it again with climate tech. But every state is competing hard. And the time is now to secure our lead and catalyze a new level of growth. And that's what the Mass Leads Act, this climate tech initiative, will do. Now, I know all of us in this room pay attention to numbers, and I don't want you guessing, because I'll get the question afterwards, what's the economic impact of all this? Okay, I'll tell you what it is. And in the next day or so, you'll see more about it, because UMass's own Donahue Institute is about to publish a report. And it's a report on the potential of climate tech in Massachusetts. The analysis is coming out later this week. But they project that our $1.3 billion investment over 10 years will result in over $16 billion of new economic activity in our state and 7,000 direct new jobs. That's a return on investment of more than 12 to 1. I like that. Do you? Yeah? Okay. Now, to make all this go, we need the human beings. We need the human talent and the human capital and our workforce. We have a need for so many workers with the right skills. And we know that talent continues to be a need across any industry. And it's been a priority for our administration from day one. We're expanding career innovation pathways in our high schools through partnerships with employers. Thank you, because these students, and we've been out to many high schools, they're getting the standard curriculum, but they're also getting training in fields where they're matched up right now with employers, and they're able to go work in the afternoon or on the weekends, right? And they're able to get jobs, they're able to have their minds open to what is possible. It's been super cool. We just opened a career innovation pathway in clean energy recently. I was down in the cranberry bogs in Carver, actually, and it's just an example of what's happening. We expanded financial aid at our public universities, along with free community college for people 25 years and older. We've seen a double-digit increase in community college enrollment this year, and much of that, almost all of that, is attributable to people who, for one reason or another, got off the path, are now back at community college, fulfilling degree requirements and setting themselves up, and their families, importantly, up for great careers. Through that program, which is called Mass Reconnect, we've brought thousands of people back to school, and in the course reversed a 10-year decline in enrollment. We launched Mass Talent, which is a program to address skills gaps and connect more diverse workers with in-demand careers. It started with the Pathmaker program at the Mass Life Sciences Center, and in just 6 months, Pathmaker has funded more than a dozen biotech training programs serving over 500 people. We're also partnering with our labor unions on expanding access for apprenticeships, for good careers in the trades, including the clean energy jobs that we'll need. The Mass Leads Act across all these fields and more would help fund and expand workforce training partnerships with employers. I want to conclude today by sharing another workforce solution that we've been developing and implementing in Massachusetts. I'll begin with a story. Sean Rose, who wanted to be here today, but he's presenting at a national autism symposium. He is the president and CEO of Thrive Support and Advocacy, which is based in Worcester. Thrive offers services to people with developmental disabilities, including residential and day programs. Like most human services providers, Thrive has struggled and had real challenges filling open positions. This is a sector, human services, and you know this, Jim, 25% job vacancy rate. And these are people who are there to provide help to some of the most vulnerable among us. They're down 25%. That's limited the number of people they can serve, which places stress on families who depend on them. They've had to maintain wait lists for so many programs, had to close programs. That was until late last year when Sean and his team discovered a new talent pool. And they are work-authorized recent immigrants living in temporary family shelter that is part of our emergency assistance program. Originally from Haiti, these workers needed some help with translation as they began to learn English. But Sean said, quote, "Their dedication far outweighs the onboarding challenges." Thrive has hired 14 recent immigrants and is ready to hire 10 more with the assistance of our team. Now the wait lists are shrinking. Parents are missing fewer days of work because a larger staff at Thrive can offer more programming during the day. I want to thank all the disability services providers who are here today for the work that they do. And I'll say that Thrive is just an example of how our companies and how our state are dealing with and working through what is a national issue. The recent increase in immigration to Massachusetts and other places has certainly presented challenges: fiscal, logistical, humanitarian. We're a right-to-shelter state, so we have a legal obligation to house people. I've been frustrated, and I've spoken repeatedly about the failure of Congress to act, including as recently as a few months ago when a deal was on the table until a former president spoke up and said there shall be no deal. And so we continue to operate without federal assistance. This is a federal issue that requires a federal solution. But as governor, I don't have the luxury of waiting for that. So in the face of federal inaction, we've been busy trying to find a path forward. I'm committed to doing it by rejecting the kind of anger and division that has dominated some of the airways and conversation in too many other places. Instead, we're trying to focus on solutions. You know, people probably didn't realize this until this year when we started to see the big numbers, but as I stand before you today, and there's been a big price tag associated with the cost of housing people, understand that more than half of the families in shelter right now are Massachusetts families. More than half. People don't realize this. Their neighbors, their brothers and sisters, their colleagues at work, who for one reason or another, maybe have been the victim of domestic violence, maybe have had a medical catastrophe happen in their family, for one reason or another, they've needed this resource. So more than half are Massachusetts families. And of course, over the last year, we've seen a big increase in new immigrants to Massachusetts who are fleeing all sorts of difficult situations. But here's what we did, to get back to what we did, okay? I had our Office of Refugees and Immigrants put in place a system of expedited legal services and English language classes. Since November alone, we've helped nearly 3,600 immigrants file work authorization applications. The vast majority of those 3,600 have been approved. Now we're in the process of getting them plugged in to employment. That includes making sure that they have English classes. And thanks to so many wonderful service providers and partners in the room, close to 1,000 individuals have been through ESL classes. Our team is connecting them every day with employers who need workers. Just a few examples. Salem Hospital is now finally, after many years, able to fully staff its housekeeping department. Catania Oils, a food producer based in Air, hired immigrants to operate machines and forklifts, offering English classes on site. UMass Amherst has hired 25 folks to work in its award-winning culinary services department. Local 26 and Best Hospitality have added training classes and worked with Boston hotels to add dozens of workers. Since November, through our team alone, we've made nearly 700 job placements with many more in the works. And that doesn't count for the hundreds of folks who, after getting their work authorization, have already gotten jobs on their own. So we still have work to do. But to everyone out there who wonders if there is a way out of this, this is part of the way. We have a well-documented worker shortage. There are jobs that are not getting filled, and now they are. And we're putting people on the path to work and out of this system. Any employer here today who's interested in tapping into that, I want you to introduce yourself to Ken Brown, who's our Assistant Secretary for Employer Engagement and Employment Outcomes in the Labor and Workforce Department, working directly with employers to help them hire and onboard work-authorized immigrants. Sarah Joseph is also here as Director of Community Engagement. She works with shelter residents and providers to identify skills, language, and onboarding needs. You can reach out to Sarah and to Ken if you're interested. There are some who've been critical, as if to suggest that I put out a sign and said, everybody come to Massachusetts. That actually didn't happen, even though I think Massachusetts is the most wonderful place to be. But here's what did happen, and it doesn't get talked about. Here's who these folks are. They're lawful immigrants. They're oftentimes parents with children. They've fled dangerous and unstable situations. In the case of Haiti, violence, hunger, displacement, creating unimaginable danger for their families. And they come here with a desire to seek safety, to protect their kids, to find some way out, and to find opportunity. They're like so many who've come here before, who helped build our state, build our country. So I recognize the hardship. I recognize people's frustration, especially in a state where we have a housing shortage and people feel pitted against one another. But I need your help because we need more housing. We need to build more housing in this state. And I'll continue to call on Congress to act, and I'll continue to push for that. But in the meantime, anyone who's able to help and plug people in, I appreciate it, and know that I take very seriously managing the fiscal aspects of this. It's why I put a cap on back last fall, and it's why I've signaled that Massachusetts is at capacity, okay? But I wanted to be honest with everybody in this room about what's really happening and who's really been affected by this, and know that I'm counting on everybody in this room, particularly when it comes to housing and what we need to do in this state. So, as I said at the beginning, I feel incredibly privileged to do this job, and I'm so proud to be governor in this great state. As always, I am hopeful and optimistic that we will meet the moment, meet the challenges that are before us, and shine as we always have. And we're going to do that by coming together, by working together, true collaboration and true partnership. Thank you for having me here this morning.
Yeah. Thank you, Governor. We have a potential healthcare crisis in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that is with the Stewart hospitals. We have 8 facilities here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 16,000 employees, thousands and thousands of patients rely on Stewart. It's a silly question, but I know that the state is prepared for the next turn, whatever it may be with Stewart, bankruptcy or consolidations. But your thoughts on what your administration is doing in monitoring the activities of Stewart?
Yep. Well, it's it's a serious situation, and I've spoken before about who's at fault here and the leadership of Stewart, and it is it's really upsetting to me what they did. To come in and basically strip assets from these institutions that are so important to community, to residents. As governor, I'm focused on 3 things: protecting patients' access to care, protecting jobs, we've got 16,000 jobs at stake, and protecting the stability of the healthcare market here in Massachusetts. And that's not an easy thing to do when you've got a player who is putting at risk 8 hospitals that serve tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of residents in this state. Now, the right person is in charge. Our great Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kate Walsh, working with the Department of Public Health Commissioner Robbie Goldstein. A lot of conversations over the course of several months to figure out what happens in the event there is a bankruptcy, but also what's the long-term vision here? What do we need to do to reorganize and right-size primary care, mental health, behavioral health, access to health care? So we are at it every day. They are at it every day. They've had a lot of conversations and will continue to have a lot of conversations regionally, not just with electeds, but also with employers and others in regions to talk about this. We're going to look different on the other side of this. I'll be honest with you. We're going to look different on the other side of this. But our job is to work to try to situate us as best as we possibly can. And I do think this is an opportunity to have real conversation and do some things differently in terms of where we're building out capacity and how we're actually delivering health care. So that's where we are right now.
You mentioned the extraordinary work that you and your administration are doing on the migration problem that we have here, and it is a crisis that seems to be with us each and every day. But talk about your work on trying to expedite the work permits, which I think is very, very important.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor this point, but I just wanted to address it. One of the things that I could do and did do, I called on Congress to act and give us funding, and that's why it's a damn shame that they didn't a few months ago when that was on the table. What I did do is say to the Biden administration, please, can you send people here to help us more quickly process people for work authorization? DHS sent people here, and that's how we were able to quickly, like no other state, work through and process so many people for work authorization. As I say, the majority of the 3,600 have already received their work authorization.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned about the biotech industry and how it has really taken off here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's truly one of our greatest economic policy successes. I think I read somewhere that it has generated some $6 billion in private investment, which is extraordinary. And you did file the Mass Leads Act, I believe, in February to fund the life science initiative that would expire in June of 25 to the tune of $1 billion. But we are facing some serious economic headwinds. So how optimistic are you to seeing this piece of legislation extended?
Well, everyone in this room, you understand the difference between investments and expenses. You understand the difference between our bonding capacity, what we're able to do based on the fact that we've got a great bond rating. So part of it is just communicating that. I mean, as with any business, you've got to make the investments, right? And the play right now, I think we've made the right play, what we're proposing, the investments in applied AI, in climate tech, in life sciences. So, yes, there are challenging, I entered office, it's been a little different scenario than everybody had for the last several years, right? All that federal money that flowed has stopped. But as I've said, we're managing this. It's why my budget was fiscally responsible that I proposed back a few months ago, and I continue to say I will hold the line on spending. We have to. But that's different from consideration of the investments that we can make through either the Affordable Homes Act and also the Mass Leads Act, and it's really important. I mean, we have to, I pay very close, as you know, I used to play, and I'm still competitive. I cannot play, but I'm still competitive, and I pay close attention, as does everyone on our team, to what other governors and other administrations are doing, what they're offering to companies, And so it's really important that we make the most of the opportunity that we have. Mm-hmm. And Jim, there's no other state. I love all of New England. Yeah. It's great, and we'll talk to our colleagues. And a lot of it's done in partnership. Some of these hubs that I talked about, we're doing stuff with New Hampshire, with Rhode Island. But Massachusetts is uniquely situated with its human talent and with what is here. And we've got to just make the most of that.
Mm-hmm. I think I read also that 32% of all venture capital funding in America is spent right here.
Right here.
Massachusetts.
Right here. We're number one per capita, number one per unit of GDP, right here in Massachusetts. So what I'm asking for is let's marry the private investment with a little bit more public love, right? And it'll be, it'll be to the benefit of everyone. 12 to 1 ROI. That's great. That's what we got to do.
Celtics number one. Going to be number one.
You don't
in
talk
June.
that way. You don't.
No, I'm asking a question. I'm not talking, Governor. I'm not talking. I'm asking you. Will they be number one in June?
I think they have everything. Talk about ingredients. They've
Yes.
got all the ingredients to win.
Yeah.
I don't know about Porzingis and his calf, but he's got a few days, and that was a good win last night. And
Yeah.
they've just got to close it out at home and be done and move on to the next round, one game at a time. Yes, go C's.
Okay.
Go B's.
Yeah. Okay. Enough of the softball questions. Okay.
We're not talking softball.
Housing. You indicated in your remarks that you've released, I believe, last October, the $4 billion housing initiative, which desperately is needed. But one of the ingredients in there to be able to fund that is the transfer tax on high property that's being sold here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You are obviously receiving some resistance on that from colleagues in the state legislature. Your discussions on that?
Yeah. Look, I thought it was my responsibility to put forward in that bond bill policy ideas that are going to help us spark production. That's why I said we should have accessory dwelling units, these granny flats, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean, right? That's what they're, right? It's the quickest way to increase housing units. It's worked in other states. So that's out there. A lot of communities had come to us and say, it's such a pain that we have to go before the legislature to get approval when we want to do something like a transfer tax. Communities down at the Cape that deal with, the Vineyard, Nantucket. So it was like, all right, let's put it in there to see, for consideration. And it's with the legislature right now. I care about us getting there. There are a lot of different ways to get there. I certainly have been clear about exclusionary zoning practices. And, this is the thing, Jim. No one of our 351 cities and towns can solve the housing crisis alone. Everybody's got to do their bit. Everybody's got to do their bit. So if you want your grandparents, your kids' grandparents to be able to stay in Massachusetts, we got to build more housing. If you want your young ones to come back and live and work in Massachusetts, we got to build more housing. And so that's the reality. I've also been clear, people who know us and who know the lieutenant governor, we're not bullies. We want to work with people. We want to collaborate. And there are towns right now that are going through discussion about the MBTA Communities Act, which was a law signed by Governor Baker and passed unanimously almost by the legislature. It's good policy. So now the rubber's meeting the road a little bit, and we've said, hey, let's work through these issues. And it's not one size fits all, but it is something that everybody in every community's got to engage in. And you guys are all leaders. People listen to all of you in your communities. Go to the planning board meeting. Go to the zoning board meeting. Go to this stuff. Speak about the imperative. Talk about your experience as an employer, or as a company, the challenges, and help us make the case together for what we need to do.
You talked about clean energy, and obviously the wind continues to blow steady across the waters here in New England, and there's a tri-state plan to eventually secure, I think, 6,500 megawatts of wind made into electricity. Massachusetts hopes to get 3,600 of those megawatts. I think the proposals have been submitted. Are you encouraged by what you're seeing?
Yeah, and I believe in wind. Some people don't, but I believe in wind.
We believe in it.
You said the wind continues to blow. I didn't know if that was the proverbial or what you were. Look, this is a space. I mean, we've gone big into renewables as a state. I think there's an economic imperative and opportunity for us, and I think that's certainly true when it comes to wind. We're right now the place in North America with the largest utility-scale offshore wind production. It's awesome. Right now as we speak, 40,000 homes being powered by wind, and that's just going to grow exponentially. So yes, big procurement, and we've said that we want to be the country's hub for offshore wind, and we're reviewing what's come in now, so I won't comment on that, but I think people recognize the investment that we've made, what our climate chief is trying to do, the opportunity that we're trying to seize here, and I think it's absolutely what we need to do, along with, and that's not exclusively, solar, hydro, battery storage, and while we work through the use of bridge fossil fuels, right? So, everything's got to be on the table.
Tax collections over the fiscal half of the month totaled $1.7 billion. Almost 23 million more, are 1.4% higher than during the same period last year. Are we out of the woods in the sense of seeing the numbers on the increase?
I think we all wish we had more change in our pocket. It is something that Matt Gorkowitz pays close attention to, and we're keeping a close eye on. And no, we're not prepared to make great prognostications. What I would say is that we continue to carefully monitor receipts, and we're going to make spending decisions accordingly, just as you would with your own budgets.
Final question, childcare. Massachusetts, I think, boasts the highest cost in the country, and obviously if parents can't find childcare, then they can't work. So I know that the providers are paid too little, and there's also a high turnover, similar to what you referred to in the disability community, because of the wages. Commonwealth Cares for Children grants have been I think we'd all agree, a game changer. And you've been discussing making the grants permanent. I believe the grant started in July of 21 with federal funds now have pretty much dried up. Your thoughts on whether the legislature should continue funding this in the future?
Well, I think we absolutely should continue to fund childcare in the state. I guess I look at it, and I'm reminded of a great New England governor, former governor, now Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, who I know appeared before you many times. Right. One of the things, and she's fantastic, one of the things that she talks about as Commerce Secretary is childcare. It's an economic underpinning, foundation, it's infrastructure to economic development and growth. And she talks about it. In fact, she's come up to Massachusetts a few times because there are some things that we're doing pretty well here and that she wants to see happen across the country. And one of those are the investments in childcare. So yes, we got a bunch of money, federal money, that has now gone away, but we made a decision that we're going to continue to support childcare so that childcare centers can stay open. How do they stay open? They stay open with workers. How do you have workers? You got to pay them enough and a decent wage so that they're able to do that work that they want to do. And so we're going to continue to do that. We also have made it more accessible in terms of increasing income levels. Because, as a governor focused on affordability and equity and competitiveness, we had to look at who was eligible and at what subsidy level. So we've expanded that some because we've got to get people more access to childcare and to grow the number of slots. So, it's a challenge because it is expensive. I appreciate so many employers have led the way. I mean, this is part of an employment infrastructure as well in so many places. So we've got to continue to try to work together. I appreciate the work of so many business organizations and associations on this. We'll continue to stay in dialogue, but it's something that we've got to solve. I've also said a couple of other things. I want universal pre-K for every 4-year-old in this state in every gateway city by 2026. That also, it's something we can do, and it's something we should do, as who we are, and it'll make a difference. It'll particularly make a difference for a number of households who are headed by single parents. It'll obviously make a difference for families who are lower income, disproportionately families of color across the state who experience still too many disparities across so many realms, from education to healthcare to transportation and more. So this is really, really important. But I know we can do it. And, childcare, a couple months ago, we were voted, Massachusetts was voted, by the way, the #1 state to live in if you're a woman. Did you know that? Yeah, it was. And I know we have a lot of women in leadership. That's not what it's about. It's about the policies, right? It's about pay equity. It's about access to health care. It's about access to reproductive health care. It's about a whole bunch of things, and we've just got to continue to work on that for the betterment of all of our residents and all of our families across this great state.
Well, we want to thank the governor. I have more questions, but I think she has a couple other things she wants to do today. I want to thank her, and